If you want to get rid of your chain drives and replace them with our range of rechargeable battery motors, then that's real simple, and I'm about to show you how. So when it comes to retrofitting, the motors and all the accessories are available from the spare parts list under motors and accessories to purchase directly from the iSeek Blinds website. Now, I just want to describe 3 motor options that you have. The first motor option is this 1.1 Newton meter short motor, okay? Now this will do blinds with a bracket to bracket size of 570 mils to 649 millimeters. The next motor I want to talk about is our 1.1 standard motor. And this motor here will do blinds with a bracket to bracket size between 650 mils and 1850 millimeters. The next motor I'd like to talk about, which is my favorite, is the strong, powerful motor with a great big battery, lasts forever, is this 2 Newton meter motor. Now this will do blinds between 750 millimeters right up to 3000 millimeters. So there are 2 things that we need to check for compatibility to ensure that we can fit the Automate brand of motor into your roller blinds. Now the first one is this 12 millimeter tongue, which is the size from there to there. That's 12 mils. And this is exactly the bracket where the chain drive used to fit into. So if we take the chain drive away, with that 12 millimeter tongue, we can replace it with the roller blind motor and it fits in perfectly, just like that. The next thing we need to check is the compatibility of an S40 or an S45 crown and drive. Now, just let me explain to you exactly what that is. On the end of the motor here, we have a drive wheel, and that's what actually turns the tube. And you can see that that's a very specific shape. And on the head of the motor, we have this component here, which is called the crown. And it's the crown because it sits on the head of the motor. And what that actually does is keeps the motor centered inside the tube, but it also counts the revolutions as the roller blind is going up and down. So that's the drive wheel, and this is the crown wheel. Now let me show you the 2 types of systems, and I'll show you the tubes that we need for this to fit in a lot more detail. The next tube that I'd like to show you is the S45 components, and I'm about to show you 3 tubes in a light, medium and heavy version. And we use these different size tubes depending on the width of the roller blind because we don't want to get any deflection in the tube there. This is the drive wheel for the S45 system, and this will fit into all 3 of these tubes. And I just want to demonstrate that for you now. So what I'm looking for is, that's the top of the tube, and I can see these fins just located there. So that's 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Now this tube has an internal dimension of 40 millimeters. So if I get my drive wheel, you can see that that has fitted into this tube perfectly. Now let's do the same thing with the crown. Once again, I'm lining up my fins that I've talked about, there, there and there. And that fits in with a little bit of tension. You've just got to give that it's a bit of a tolerance fit, so you've got to give that a little bit of a tap, but you'll see that that fits perfectly into this tube. Now this tube here is the S45 standard tube or medium tube. And you can see that once again, we've got an internal dimension of 40 millimeters. We've got the same little fins at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. But this tube here is a bit thicker in the wall, and it also introduces these 2 grooves at the bottom to give the tube extra strength. Now, if I was to get the same drive wheel, I can put that drive wheel perfectly into this tube. And once again, this tube also has an internal dimension of 40 millimeters. Now with the crown, which is this component that sits at the head of the motor, that fits in exactly the same way. So just lining up my fins, and I won't push that in right now, but that's perfectly installed. Now my big heavy tube. This is ginormous and it's very heavy, this tube, and we use this for blinds that are, generally 2.6 up to 3 meters wide. But once again, It looks big and scary, but it's got the same fins. We can see there's 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. And this groove here represents the top of my tube. So I'm using that same drive wheel and I'm fitting that exact same drive wheel into this heavy tube. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with the crown. And once again, that fits in perfectly with a bit of a push. Now with these 3 tubes, the light, medium and heavy tube, we can use the 1.1 Newton meter motors, be it the short motor or the standard motor, or we can use the 2.0 Newton meter motor and would be using the S45 crown and drive. We're going to go ahead now and install this 2 Newton meter motor, which is my favorite motor, into this roller blind right here. And I'm going to take you through all the steps in how to do it. Now the first thing we need to do is remove this roller blind from the bracket. So what we do is we roll the blind into its up position. We go to what we call the pin end, and there'll be a little plastic wheel, and we've got to turn that plastic wheel in the anti-clockwise direction, and that will retract the pin and we can remove it from the bracket. So let's go ahead and turn that. Out it comes from that end there first, and then out it comes from the male bracket, which is where the chain drive was fitted into. So let's go ahead and just pull that chain drive out. So now we're exposing the actual aluminium tube itself, and just looking at this, I can see this is the S45 tube, and this is the light version because this is just quite a narrow roller blind. So let's get our motor now, and I'll show you how to insert it into the tube. So I've got the blind between my legs, but I can assure you it's much easier if you put it over a bed or a couch and just have this end of the roller blind sort of sticking out so you can do it nice and easily, but I'll see how I go with it between my legs. Now, with this tube here, as I explained before, I'm looking at the 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock fins, and I can see that my drive wheel, which is this component, also has those matching parts. So let's go ahead and install that. Once you get it to match perfectly, it just slides in just like that. And now my crown, I can turn that to match the actual tube itself. And once again, I'm looking for my fins, 2, 4, 8 and 10 o'clock. And I can see those there. So let's go ahead and fit those in place. Now, once you do get it started, you've just got to give it a little bit of a push in place to get it to stick. So now that my motor's installed inside the roll tube, the last thing I want to do is get the blind and tip it down like that, or tip it down the motor end, because that motor is just going to come sliding straight out of that tube. So you'll see that I'm always holding the end of the motor, or I'm always holding the blind on an angle like this, and that's really, really important. The next thing I'm going to do is just identify exactly where my USB port is, and I can see my USB port is there, and it's really important that when I install that into the male bracket, that USB port is facing directly at the 6 o'clock position. So let's just roll that around, and you can see once again the angle that I'm holding the blind. Let's roll that around so I can see it, and it's much better if you've got 2 people to do this job, particularly on the wider blinds. We're going to install the motor into the male bracket with my USB facing straight down, and you can see it slides onto the motor perfectly. Now I'm just holding a little bit of tension in that direction as I work to this end of the blind, and I click it in position, and that's the job finished. So if you're still not sure and you just want to check exactly what tubes that you have, we do have these crown and drive test kits available to purchase on the iSeek Blinds website under spare parts, under motor and accessories. Now there you can buy the S40 crown and drive, or you can purchase the S45 crown and drive. Once you've got these in your home, you can quickly remove the blinds, insert them into the tubes, and make sure that they're perfectly compatible with your blinds. So now that I've installed the blind, if you'd like to know all about the function and operation of the remote control to get your blinds moving, you can click right here, and I take you through our, I think 10 or 11 step video, and show you everything you need to know about how to get the best from the remote control. Job's now done, my blinds are now motorised. Thanks for watching.